There we go.
It's not letting me share my screen, however. But my name is Shelley Williams. I'm the Executive Director of In Tandem Workforce. In Tandem Workforce is a workforce development agency. Our core focus areas is community violence intervention, workforce development with a environmental education angle, and also green pathing. The goal of our program is to assist individuals that's high risk, marginalized, unemployed unemployed individuals to become upskilled in the renewable energy sphere, so we can segue them into high growth, high demand jobs in the green infrastructure. We've partnered with Lumen Energy, David Jones, Executive Director, to really maximize the output of bringing renewable energy to marginalized populations, or should I say environmental justice communities of concern, so we can work on ultimate environmental stewardship. It From the perspective of In Tandem Workforce, we worked in these same communities that are epicenters for violence in the Chicagoland region and saw that poverty and pollution was right hand in hand with one another. So our solution was to actually work to build the educational component of environmental science, environmental knowledge, so we can bring that high-risk population, that marginalized population into the knowledge of environmental stewardship in an effort to change their attitude towards violence. In the process, we work to build an economic engine where we can sustain. Well, sustainability has a trifold effect. The curriculum that we employ in our foundational skills training is called Roots of Success. It's a registered pre-apprenticeship program sanctioned by the Department of Labor. It's 10 modules, and it covers the fundamentals of environmental literacy. It also covers water and waste, transportation, the built environment, financial literacy, community organizing. It also focuses on application and practice. So as we scale up in the work that we do, we want to build out our social enterprise so we can work in those communities, so we can address the brownfields and the fly dumps that exist, to beautify our community, but also remove those environmental hazards from the community. Just the exposure to chemicals that come from just the transportation industry and these fly dumps that I mentioned, it really has a long-term effect that's damaging and oftentimes irreversible. So we want to bring the community awareness to the forefront while we're educating individuals and employing them at the same time. So we do have a tall task. The academic objectives that are present is environmental literacy. There's an academic component, work readiness and career pathing, leadership development. I did mention social entrepreneurship and financial literacy. But if I can just back up a sec.
Yes.
Before we get into the actual transferable skill training, we focus on the social emotional learning. We have a evidence-based curriculum that was developed out of Loyola University that deal with a bottom-up approach in workforce development, where we really provide that structured time for self-reflection to develop coping skills. In our soil to sun model, it's a model that we have. Our soil to sun, we have 3 phases. It's a 16-week across the board where they go through the entry process and then education and connection. In that entry, that's why I wish I could share my screen right quick.
Okay, let's see. Will you let me give you permission to do it? I just thought about it. Give me 1 second. Let's see, share. Oh,
Okay, I should be
you
able.
should be able to share now.
Okay. Do you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about this guy. Hold on. Let me look for it here. Oh, just give me 1 second.
Sure, sure. Take your time.
All right. So a lot of
Oh,
this, yeah, thank you. Thank you for your patience. A lot of this I've already shared. So if I could just go, yeah. So we was established in 2021 during the COVID epidemic. We was at home. We've been doing this work. My wife and me. She's our chief operations officer. We've worked in violence prevention. She is a director of violence prevention. Me as a workforce development professional. I worked in sustainable agriculture. I'm currently getting my degree in environmental science. My wife's degree is she's a mental health therapist. So we was always working with our target population in one way or another to really heal the people. We connected that to the land, and we don't see how you could do one and not the other.
mhm.
It's a joint effort, which hence the
Yes.
name in tandem. So with that, we feel that the problem in our communities, or those environmental justice communities are concerned, is lack of access to quality education. And between in tandem and Lumina, we have it in spades. And we passionate to provide a solution. A solution in this case is to have comprehensive environmental education and industry certifications that individuals can obtain and earn at the end of graduation. With some programs, unlike some programs, we follow our participants throughout the life cycle or their career path or their life path. So it's not just a one and done a year process. I mean, throughout the course of their life, we want to build an alumni association so we can actually build a labor force that's going to exist throughout the city and ultimately the country. Um, Again, the focus areas are violence prevention, environmental education and training, and green pathing. We partner again with Lumen Energy in support of the decarbonization campaign. David can talk more intently about that section. The workforce development being the umbrella, and under that the certifications that's possible, some being EV infrastructure, energy auditing, and again, virtual power planning. I'll let David take the lead on that. And also a project that we're currently working on in Maywood, the Living Tower. That's again in David's wheelhouse.
Okay.
Our offer also uh, kind of like alluded to our model, soil to sun. So it's a soil, earth, and sun um, model. Again, the entry level would be an anti-racist framework. We want to create an environment where it's free of racial bias and discrimination. That's the culture that we breed. Again, with the foundational skills training that allows for, I don't know how the quality of this picture is, but I hope you're following with me.
Yes.
The foundational skills training, which is your job readiness training, but 2.0, the social emotional learning I mentioned. And then we saw a gap, the digital divide gap with our population. So we make sure we bake that in the early portion of the classroom training. Again, we move into our pre-apprenticeship industry recognized credential that includes your 40 hour HAZWAP or some of the specialty trainings that I just mentioned into the sun phase, right? That's the path, and that's the preparation for the NAPSAP and all the work that we do with social entrepreneurship. It's our larger goal to have people to build businesses out of our catalyst system. So, and our team reflects myself, Tiffany Kinsley, who's a geologist, Lynn, who is a researcher out of Princeton University. We have a development guru in Selena, and then yours truly, or David Jones, that's on the call right now, who's our resident inventor and master trainer. And with that, I think that's all told in terms of some of the work that we do. We've been working in Chicago for 20 years in not-for-profit sector, and found that the science is spot on, where say when we connect our population to nature and environmental sciences, that really change people's attitude towards the environment, obviously, and their intentionality to get beyond criminogenics.
Okay.
Nice.
I think
Nice.
that's my
Nice,
spiel.
nice, nice. Well, let me introduce myself. That was a very nice presentation.
I think
Um, my name is Angela Wells, and I am thrilled to have this opportunity to sit in on the call and introduce myself as a engineer. And I'm passionate about pushing these boundaries of technology and complex solving problems. I bring 20 years, well, actually 25 years of healthcare experience and 5 years in tech. And so throughout my career, um, had the privilege of working on diverse range of projects, which I'm currently now the director of operation technologist um, for Mali in West Africa. I was appointed by the country director. And so we're actually working with farmers and students, the university students, training them with robotics, drones, website developments. And so I'm overseeing that project. Uh, these skills, and well, actually, these experience have not only honed my technology skills, but has taught me the importance of collaboration, innovation, and continuous learning in engineering. So, David, thank you so much for inviting me on this call and this talk. And so I'm going to turn it over to you. And um,
Awesome.
here you go.
Well, thank you very much, Angela. Shelley, fantastic job as always.
thank you.
So I will do a brief introduction of myself and then get into my spiel. I sometimes tend to be a long-winded talker, so feel free to ring the bell if, if I do. So my name is David Jones, and I am a technologist, software engineer, inventor, and polymath. Um, I did my Bachelor of Fine Arts at Juilliard in New York. I did my master's, well, MBA program at MIT. I was a pilot for 3 years prior to becoming a technologist full time. I've kind of been the resident go-to nerd in my family, so I've been deeply involved in tech in one way or another for at least 30 years now. Um, I have recently gone on to found Lumen Energy and Lumen Energy Academy. So Lumen Energy is an energy as a service software firm that specializes in demand response virtual power plant infrastructure. Mouthful, yes it is, but to essentially break that down, whenever there are disparities in an infrastructural grid system, we instead would use assets under our portfolio, such as renewables, like solar on top of rooftops or wind turbines, geothermal plants, hydro dams, and we would aggregate that power to be used to avoid blackouts, brownouts, cybersecurity attacks, the entire gamut. Anything that requires grid resiliency sort of falls under our purview. We've since launched a nationwide program to do beta testing for demand response across the U.S., but I would say North America in general, because we have a couple of programs that are running in Canada, as well as in the Dominican Republic and Mexico. So I have a few decks that I've queued up just to share some of the progress that we've made. So if I can just share my screen real quick. 1 second. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it would be apropos, instead of having 40 million slides, to just go through some of the more public works that we have. So in 2022, my organization released the world's first virtual power plant energy compendium based upon our work. So let's go to the meat and potatoes of that. So this is, Shelley mentioned that I've worked in the invention space for a while, and one of my more prominent inventions is called a ReDAO, which employs the energy blockchain to allow for e-governance, energy trades, and ultimately a trustless system where any region, any municipality, any microgrid could adopt this and similarly be able to make autonomous decisions without needing a centralized manager, if you will. So like a president or a CEO or what have you. We've in essence created the world's first democratized energy sharing program that uses the platform to share tokenized transactions. And just to give an example, I live in a subdivision just outside of Chicago, Illinois, and the idea behind having several hundred homes that do not have any energy independence, I think, is by way, it's a form of barbarism in 2024. We as people of color, especially if we do not have energy independence, then we would be hopelessly inured to the system that has cultivated our, and I err on the side of caution in saying so, but has cultivated our captivity for so very long. So at the core foundation of any civilization, if you do not grow your own food, if you do not own your own energy infrastructure, if you do not own your banks, you basically have no say-so in what happens politically. So this is the first step into the new sunlight. I would say that originally I created this to help the entire nation, the entire continent rather, of Africa, to pull away from some of the inherent corruption that exists in their government, as well as on the corporate side. I'm actually I'm an emissary as well as an energy consultant with the nation of South Africa, and we're currently working on mitigating their load shedding crisis that affects millions of people. And the idea is to create and adopt this system to implement a democratized platform that would allow for about 10 gigawatts worth of managed resources and ultimately fuel the next 100 or 150 years of development for the nation. We've also been directly correlated with some of the instances of Hurricane Maria, which, as you all know, decimated the Caribbean. So we've done some work in the Bahamas, we've done some work in the Dominican Republic, and as well as Haiti. The idea behind creating the ReDAO is, I mean, alongside of the grid resiliency, is really designed for marginalized people of color to have a voice, to be able to vote on specific issues that would directly affect their day-to-day lives. Am I making sense so far? I hope I am.
Yes, you are.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let's see, something good. Okay. So just for visuals, 100 megawatts of energy from a virtual power plant could power up to 16,000 homes. Now, as I'd mentioned, with the government of South Africa, we're working on a 10 gigawatt program. So You do the math. See. And also what this does is a virtual power plant provides real-time updates. So instead of having a static system that relies on sort of passive data gathering, this is all in real time. If I were, for instance, to trade energy to Angela, who lives in Louisiana, we would be able to publicly audit that transaction. So I'm not looking at a clock right now, but we would essentially be able to say, David has shared X amount of kilowatt hours to Angela. This is how much he received per the Illinois guidelines for energy trades. And that makes everything far more transparent. So there's no way we can have the wool pulled over our eyes or for any backdoor shenanigans to happen. Also, with grid resiliency comes the opportunity to have a modality featuring all forms of renewable energy, because from a greenhouse gas and carbon emissions perspective, we don't have an infinite amount of fossil fuels available. They are, as we know, polluting our atmosphere, destroying the ozone layer, and they're creating irreversible damage to all of the ecosystems around the globe, which is one of the reasons that Shelley and I were brought together. But I believe, regardless what the politics, wherever that dime falls, we still need to have a diverse portfolio that we can draw from.
Right.
And from that, we can leverage all of the forms of energy production that are available, as well as energy storage. So this is actually a data case study that we conducted on one of our houses in Arizona. And not to bore you with all of the minutia of data, you can see on the left-hand side that this is a sample energy bill, as well as the amount of data trades that happened. So you can see that we actually do make money for the customer. You can see the amount of data that's generated, which can be shared with private or public entities. So we can engage actively in data-driven decision making. So on the right side, you'll actually see an example of some of the blockchain transactions that did happen that are time-stamped, the amount of kilowatt hours, whatever the load was at the time, the amount of data that was used, and the amount of energy that was part of that trade. Am I making sense so far?
Yes.
You are, yes.
It's
Continue.
comprehensive.
Yeah, so I mean, it goes on and on like that, but the general idea, as I said, is we have single-handedly architected grid resiliency that employs all forms of energy usage and storage, and will predominantly benefit countries that are developing for people of color. Okay, so that's part of that. Any questions before I move on? I like that silence. So it means I answered all the questions, right?
Not at this time.
Okay, let me go to the next deal. 1 second. Okay, so moving on to the workforce development arm of what we do. When I met Shelley, we were operating out of the Willis Tower, which is one of the, or at the time was the largest building in the world. And we were able to conduct a multitude of trainings around workforce development in solar, specifically for marginalized people of color, to increase the sustainable energy economy for our neighborhoods. And we were single-handedly able to give hundreds of people the opportunity to become players in that field, in that space, to transition from whatever they were doing before, or if they were unemployed or underemployed, we allotted them the ability to achieve certifications in the energy industry that is only projected to grow by hundreds of percent over the next 25 years. We're expecting a 75% increase in the solar industry within the next 10. We've also been able to successfully break into the EV space. I'm also a member of the of Agility, which is the largest Black-owned electric vehicle manufacturer. Um, and I mean, at our core, we're all about social enterprise. So sure, we are able to give opportunities where we can have people of color working for larger organizations, but we've also empowered those very same people to say, hey, you don't have to work for others. You have the wherewithal, you have the skills, you have the resources, and you have the backing from a reputable organization by way of Lumen Energy, which has existed for 5 years now, to
Mhm.
say I can create my own organization and become a subcontractor to build my own services up. To my knowledge, that has never been done before. And
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, please go ahead and correct me on that. So these are actually some images from the cohort that Shelley and his former organization were a part of, where we trained 10 individuals to become solar installers and PV 101 um, uh, placement people. So many of them did go on to have successful careers in solar. And as a matter of fact, the gentleman sitting in the left-hand corner
Mhm.
is one of our clean tech experts, which is a fancy way of saying a teacher's aide. So whenever we do conduct solar trainings, people like him are the ones that really make an impact. Because as we know, with people of color, sometimes going into a new field means you are very much like a fish out of water, and it's a scary place to be if you want to make a difference, if you want to provide for your family, but you're like, I don't know what's going on. So being able to relate to the person that is proctoring education to you, I think is one of the first steps, because representation matters. And
Right.
ultimately, having a dichotomy where it's not just one person that's kind of blah blah blahing in front of a chalkboard, but you have one-on-one individualized attention from someone who has already gone through the program, looks like you, can help you along the way, can provide mentorship before, during, and post graduation from our program. That has allowed us to create a 98.5% graduation rate.
Okay. And question, oh,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
went
No, please go
get it.
ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask you with the certification, how long does the training like? But I see where you go getting ready to go to
Yep.
that part. So
Already leading into it.
yeah, okay.
Yep. So at the moment, we offer 5 different types of trainings. The first one being exploring the solar industry, which is a more day-to-day workshop. Um, there are some instances of that online. I've just started a YouTube channel. So the first one that we did was for a new type of initiative called LEA Kids, Lumen Energy Academy Kids, where we partnered with Microsoft, and they sponsored us to like to just give the basic understanding of what the entire renewable energy industry and solar industry entails, and like how you can break into it, how you can become an entrepreneur with it, and how it applies to your everyday life. And it becomes a linear progression of exceeding difficulty as well as application. So moving on, you have PV 101 in sales, which is really deep dive into PV and um, kind of training you to have technical chops for technical sales. That's a 3-week program, more or less. We've seen it go over, we've seen it go under. It really just depends on the amount of retention and the size of the class, because larger classes can sometimes equate to a much larger period because there's more people. Moving on from that, certified solar installer, which Shelley mentioned, we are NABCEP certified. We also offer a proctored Midwest Renewable Energy Association certification alongside of the Lumen Energy Academy certification. That program usually lasts about 2 months or about 300 hours. Then cream of the crop, virtual power plant technician. This is something that has just been offered globally by us. This is essentially a hybridized program that connects PV with ICT, IoT, machine learning, and allows you to
Oh, wow.
create what is eventually going to become the, how to explain, like the genesis of a smart city, like an actual smart city. Because at the
Yes.
core of any smart city is energy. And if you know how to create a dashboard, operate that dashboard, then everything else is built on top of that platform. Does that make sense?
It
It makes
does.
sense.
Okay. So that is about 3 months long and 350 hours, and you would receive a multitude of certifications in CompTIA, NABCEP, NECCR, and a couple of other ones that I'm blanking on right now. But I think stackable credentials is the way to go for people of color. This enables us to say, well, even if we don't choose to go down the path of becoming a VPP tech, we can also leverage those skills for other career fields. And then lastly, this is a new program that we're offering is electric vehicle charger installer, which is about 3 weeks long, 40 hours, and we use the industry standard of the test the charger, where same kind of breakdown from a management perspective. You have a chief engineer takes you out into the field, teaches you how to install EV chargers on a system from a commercial standpoint as well as a residential standpoint. It's mostly relegated to people who already have experience in either becoming a journeyman or already a licensed electrician, because it is very comprehensive and you need you need to have some established certifications for that. So yeah, this is kind of a linear timeline of what to expect from each, where you have the training, you have PV 101, you have OSHA and HAZWOPER training, which is facilitated by Shelley, and then there's a post-mentorship. Same thing for basically each and every one of those. You know, with the solar industry workshops, those are more so to get an understanding of like what you can do and like how you could benefit from this. But we do provide a Lumen Energy Academy certificate of completion, which could be used for like service learning hours if you're a student, or if you need community service, it applies there as well. Intro to PV, very similar. You know, soft skills training I think are very important, especially if you're going into PV sales, because many people who want to break into the sales industry just simply don't know how to talk to people. And if you can't communicate effectively, good luck. So yeah, you know, we offer multiple stackable credentials, then also post-mentorship, as well as a network that is growing by way of the decarbonization program that Shelley talked about earlier, which I'll get into shortly. PV technical sales, solar installer, same thing, you know, and OSHA training. So yeah, these are some of the community partners that we've had. As I mentioned, we have trained hundreds of people across the length of our career or lifetime of the business, and we are in multiple states. So, any questions before I stop that?
Yes. Oh, for the students, what are the age range for students? The introduction of
For
this
the
course.
introduction, well, we're like
Yeah.
Lego.
Is it middle
How do I say,
school, high
like
school?
3 to 99 or something? No,
Oh, okay. Okay.
no. We usually start about 7 or 8 years old, when we know that we can kind of capture their attention, but also to make sure that they're coherent enough to really grasp the concept of what they're getting into, and it becomes really immersive,
Okay.
really fun. We have all kinds of little activities that we do, and it's a great thing. Like they get to get up close and personal with some of the industry tools. Like they learn how to use a multimeter. They learn about the microprocessor that we use. They get to try on like hard hats. It's really fun. It's really cool stuff.
Got it.
Yeah,
So will this program also be remote or
it's in person.
in person?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think we as a society have gotten so carried away with technology that we think getting in front of a computer to learn densely packed subject matter is going to work, and it does not. If you
Sure.
don't have that in-person hands-on learning, it's very likely that it's just going to go in one ear and out the other, especially with kids.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. Any more questions before I move on to the final slide? I'm
No.
trying not to overtalk, but yeah, I'm sure we have a lot that we want to discuss. Oh, before I move on, I forgot about this. So this is our proprietary learning management system called LEA Online, or Leal, which is the Portuguese word for lion. We use this. You mentioned, is this in person or is it hybrid or is it remote? So for many of the trainings that we do, they are partially hybrid because we need to capture a lot of that data. So when we do testing, for instance, our students log into Layout, they go into their certification training, and we're able to see exactly, like, what's how they performed on testing or what their engagement is on the lesson. They're able to review some of the sections that we covered in class. They can talk to their instructors. There's a virtual classroom setting as well. So if for instance we do have like a guest speaker, and by the way, Angela, I can't wait to have you as one on something. Yeah, that's kind of how we operate.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, so let me move on. Okay. Um, this is my new baby that I've been working on for a while. Angela, Shelley, you both, I think at this point, read the white paper or at least skimmed through
Yes.
it so you get the gist of it. This moved into another section of something that is particularly close to my heart. And if it wasn't already abundantly clear, everything that I have devoted my life to is for the betterment of Black and Brown people in the way of addressing all the core tenets of society. Food production is paramount. If we as a society, as a subgroup of people, depending on where you're located, are not able to farm our own produce, then we are leaving it up to the vices of other people to do whatever they want to do. And, that's how we get genetically modified organisms and crops and all kinds of stuff. But I think that we have established a solution. So this is me just, it's kind of like reinventing the wheel. Hydroponics has existed for thousands of years. It has been far more successful and vastly more accepted than agricultural farming for a very long time. And it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that we began to use kind of soil-based farming rather, to get the job done. But to be realistic, hydroponics offers somewhere around like a 10x growth rate as opposed to crops that are grown in soil, which require all sorts of pesticides and fertilizers and this and that. And the turnaround time could easily be several months, as opposed to a vertical farming hydroponic tower, which could be several weeks. So I'll get into that. Oh, as Shelley mentioned earlier, we're working on seriously creating a pilot program with the village of Maywood, Illinois, to combat food deserts. And
Food deserts.
yes, ma'am. And the idea
Okay.
behind that is in Illinois, in most of America, there are a lot of food deserts that plague Black and Brown communities. And it's unfortunate that many of these areas perhaps don't even have a supermarket within walking distance, within a mile, within 2 miles. So what ends up happening is the residents rely on food and liquor stores. They rely on gas stations. They rely on corner stores, which have little to no nutrient value. Um, and that's where we start to see a breakdown of comorbidities such as high blood pressure, hypertension,
Yes.
diabetes, the whole gamut, all the things that we've seen people of color suffer from for many, many years. That is 100% avoidable, by the way.
Yep.
So as I'd mentioned in the white paper, I I lost, and I'm like tearing up right now. I lost multiple members of my family due to things that were 100% avoidable, who live in the village of Maywood, just based on the fact that there were no supermarkets that were within driving distance or within walking distance, I should say. And certainly there were no reputable hospitals that could provide urgent care or reasonably priced medical services. So I said, I could probably figure this out. And that's where the Living Tower came about. So these are some of the benefits of what we've created: your own food production, high crop yield. Educational is going to be massive, because if we don't start young, then it really is like, and I don't mean to insult anyone, but it's like teaching an old dog new tricks. It's very difficult um, for our people to understand the how to grow their own stuff if we're starting them at the age at like a later stage in life, as opposed to starting them when they're 6 or 7 years old.
Right.
Community engagement is incredibly important. I think that this helps with recidivism, it helps with reducing crime overall, and it provides a sense of engagement that we've never really seen in an urban setting before. So being able to adapt this living tower to food deserts across the United States and eventually across the world will allow communities to come together as they never have before. I think this could probably, and maybe this is my own ego talking, but I think that this could be the resolution to a number of different factors that have hindered the growth and sustainability of our people for far too long. One of those being, I think that this has the potential uh, to solve world hunger. And I think doing this pilot program will allow us to test those theories and to posit something that could become better or worse, or at least to just measure that in a real way. Does that make sense so far?
It does.
Okay.
I want to add too that I worked at, obviously you know this in at a USDA certified organic urban farm in Inglewood, and just the connection we made with that community just to
Yes.
provide access to the community. You know, me being a 50-year resident of said community, you hearing more conversation in that lexicon around healthy food options and eating. So, you know, just having this tower in Inglewood, for example, in the Inglewoods of the world, you know, would be so productive. I mean, obviously, when you talked about the community piece, and you know, it's all associated to our environment and the Eden campaign. And Angela, maybe that is the that underscores the partnership that David and I have cultivated over the years. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I
And
have,
by the way,
okay.
I believe you said you were going to share this online. So for those out there who aren't aware, Inglewood is a particularly plagued area of Chicago, which has been labeled as the most violent neighborhood in America for multiple years. Um, I mean, in Chicago, I believe last year alone, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, we saw something like 500 mortalities, many of which came out of Inglewood.
Yeah, many of which came out of Inglewood. It was around 52 homicides in a 7.2 square mile area. In Chicago itself, it was over 3,077 shooting and or homicides. So we ranked high, unfortunately, in that with those metrics. And which is why we build in our CVI component, the community violence intervention, and tie in renewable energy and career training to offsetting violent episodes. So
Mm.
yeah, you spot on that number.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, it's not to say that the Living Tower is some end all be all solution, but I believe that it is an inroad to creating a lasting solution, especially when we're able to create a concerted front that addresses many of the issues that plague the Black and Brown communities globally um, simultaneously. Any questions so far, Angela? Is she still there?
I think she froze.
You froze. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so moving on, one of the issues that we are basically at our apex with is the migrant worker or the migrant crisis in America. which has seen an influx of almost 300% rise of people coming across the border illegally. And to be fair, there are multiple ways of looking at this situation, but at the end of the day, these are invisible borders. These are human beings. They deserve equal rights. They deserve
Yeah,
opportunities. And I think one of the ways that we can help to solve some of the issues that have been self-inflicted in America are by training these people uh, to become part of the Living Tower propagation system across the entire United States, setting up an entire workforce development program to get them certified in a number of different areas. On top of that, being able to allow for collaboration between people who would have never normally worked together. So having someone coming from, say, Honduras, working with someone who has lived in Inglewood their entire life, it's kind of a few and far between meeting situation. But I think this is where we realize that many of the barriers that we face as a global community are literally just skin deep. We all want the same things, and I believe that sponsoring some of these qualified people would allow us to offset the workforce that cannot be managed from the people that live stateside. Get put a little money in there in the migrants' pockets, put some money in the people who are already a part of the program, who are helping to lift it up by way of packaging or other kind of factory processes, as well as people who actually cultivate the crops. So this is the timeline thus far. I released a peer-reviewed white paper. We were working on key stakeholder relationships when this deck was created. And what we're now working on is unveiling a 3D printed miniaturized scale model of the Living Tower to the general public. And then we'll start working on fundraising, grants, and then eventually break ground in Maywood and launch in summer of 2025. At least that's by way of order of magnitude of things that we want to do and are of most importance. So this is what the scale model will look like. And I think being able to get up close and personal with something that is, for the most part, abstract. We've never seen anything like this in Black and brown neighborhoods ever before. So being able to talk to the engineers that have made it possible. Angela, you are included in that conversation, by the way. So Angela is supposed to be working with us for the robotics section of development. And I think this will help to mitigate some of the concerns, if there are any at all, and really to just get the company going like off to the races fairly quickly.
yes,
So if you look here, these are actually some iterations that we crafted for how multiple versions of the Living Tower could look. So we can employ them in rural land. We can employ them in the Arctic tundra, where literally nothing grows. Sub-Saharan Africa, which is one I'm particularly enthused about. And then I think the model that will have the most application will be in densely packed urban areas. So in crowded cities, you can see on the lower left-hand corner these facilities lining entire street blocks that could shorten the supply chain for produce going into grocery stores and restaurants and what do you call them? Food depositories. I think that this is the way that we allow the organization to grow much faster than others through creating modular solutions that can be adapted to any environment. So this is part of our team. Needs to be updated a little bit. But people, I mean, all of these people are at the top of their fields in respected universities and nonprofit organizations and academic institutions, state government, local government, biologists. Oh, did she drop off? I think she dropped off.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Anyhow, yeah, so these are the public and private partnerships that we have available. And that is that. Angela, are you still there?
Technical issues, but I'm here.
Oh, no worries. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just ending my um final presentation. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I
I-
wanted to open the floor up for questions or, to just let's create some discourse.
okay, sure. I had a question.
Yes.
With this project that you have going, will there be, are there going to be like features that like an app where the communities like want to like access um, um, I mean, this information,
Mhm.
or maybe they can just track, like, say, for instance, they may add their names, maybe track like their, let's see, help me out.
You mean to track like the data, like farm to table,
Hmm.
for instance, blockchain or
Yeah, yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Okay,
so I'm glad you mentioned that.
okay,
Um, one of the one of the big selling points of creating a vertical farming facility is employing the blockchain to manage farm to table, um, like a data ledger, like an online publicly auditable ledger where people can see where their produce is shipped. They can see who's involved in it. They can see like how the pricing fluctuates over time. So we're essentially creating like um, almost like an index, if you will, that can be viewed 24 hours a day that is fully trackable, fully trustless, as part of a decentralized autonomous organization as well.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So those are the three fun things that that I've devoted my life to, and I'm just so over the moon. I get to collaborate with amazing individuals like yourselves.
Got it. Okay.
All right, so I will end my presentation there. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. No.
Thank you.
David, awesome presentation. You know where I stand overall, um, we are boots on the ground. We are grassroots. You have um big, big global ideas around what really matters, which is in food scarcity, working with marginalized groups, the inclusivity of with the migrants and others, people who are marginalized and downtrodden. So, um, I love that the discussion is not silo. It affects us all,
Mhm.
So
Yes,
it's definitely a holistic game plan. Don't see how or why anybody would not be in agreement and wouldn't want to um support this endeavor. So
Well, maybe Monsanto might not like it, but it's okay.
yeah, and then we have some choice words there, but all to say that this is environmental stewardship, and I'm gonna go on the limb and say this is God's work. So that's
it
my
is.
yeah.
Yes, and I mean, as a matter of fact, today before the call started, Angela and I were just talking about that, and I put God first in all of my endeavors. Everything that I do is to glorify His name, and moreover, it is to glorify and to provide aid to His people, because we
Yes,
don't necessarily need to pray for solutions. We just need to pray for the strength and the wherewithal, for the resources to make it happen. We already have all the necessary accoutrements that are required to lift ourselves out of the situation. We just have to work together.
Well
yes.
said. Well said.
Well said.
Yeah, so that's what I have. I would love to hear your thoughts, Angela. Is she there?
Having a little, okay. Can you hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes.